Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're finally going to be talking about the newest album from Rapsody called Eve. Alright, yes, I know. I'm late again. Not quite as late as last time, but still late. That's on me. And yet, that actually got me thinking. Rapsody is one of those MCs who should be discussed among terrific rappers out right now. A lyricist who can bend flows with cutting bars. He's got the significant production talents of Ninth Wonder behind her, along with the pedigree to command respective spitters both past and present. And yet, for as much as I praise Layla's Wisdom late in 2017, it just wasn't a project I often felt inclined to revisit in the same way. And I can't just say it was rooted in the rush of the year end, because Rust and Kelly dropped at the end of last year and I still play the hell out of that album. I've got no excuse, so what the hell is it? Well, after a quick re-listen to Layla's Wisdom, which served as a very welcome reminder of its quality, seriously, it's an excellent album and probably is underrated to this day, but I also got something of an answer. Some of the density and the weight of the content. Rapsody, she stacks her bars deep and plays against texture production and heavy subject matter, but a little light on melodic hooks or straightforward bangers. It means that I place her in a category with other heavy-hitting lyricists from the underground that I need to be in a specific mood to hear. And let me stress, that's not denigrating her whatsoever. That's often an elite group, for sure. It's often one that as I get older, I tend to revisit more. But I also feel that the next big step for Rapsody would be finding a way to transcend that barrier and that group, which might come more through composition or song structure than outright bars, or maybe a thematic core that resonates more deeply and makes all the songs resonate that much more strongly. And given the mountains of critical acclaim given to Eve, which was similar to what was given to Layla's Wisdom, but also a little bit more muted than I expected, I had high hopes for this. So, alright, what did Rapsody deliver with this? Well, in my last review, I made the statement that I'm not really a fan of the line, "It's not for me," because I've long held the belief that for a discerning audience, truly great art can transcend that demarcation. Well, that was certainly put to the test with Eve, a project coming off of Layla's Wisdom, and some considerable expectations on my front. I was hoping this would kick a lot of ass, and yet I wound up feeling a little bit more lukewarm on this project than I expected. Don't get me wrong, it's far from bad. In fact, I'd argue it's actually really damn good, but it also feels like the niggling issues I had just below the surface on Layla's Wisdom are more evident here. And for as much as I admire the aspirational focus and how it's intended for an audience often underserved with this style of content, I don't know, I wanted this to hit harder than it did. It's certainly very good, but I don't know if it's great. And you know, I want to start with Rapsody here, and let me establish that more often than not, she is easily the most compelling part of any of these albums. A big personality with a lot of impressive grit, multiple flows, and a voice that just commands your attention. Hell, this is a project with J. Cole, Jid, and Jizza on it, and the only rapper it feels like she can command the atmosphere more? That's Queen Latifah on Hatshepsut, and even there it feels like more that Rapsody is deferring to a legend. And nobody can doubt Rapsody's confidence. That much is clear. Very reminiscent of a lot of Jay-Z. And that might be linked to why this album can feel like a bit of a draining listen at points. I can appreciate a lot of bravado and flair, especially given that Rapsody does vary the content to show range. We'll come back to that. But like with Jay-Z, it's a brand of swagger in her delivery that feels so self-assured that it starts running together a little bit. You start wishing for a little bit more conflict and drama, or even the tender moments they come across forcefully. And I find myself looking for emotive subtlety in her presentation that you will hear in the content. And yet when you pair with the fact that Rapsody's albums always run long, you find yourself questioning whether there's room to breathe, whether or not you get those distinctive differentiating moments. Note that I'm referring more here to tone and emotion, not cadence and flow, because Rapsody does slide into looser, more trap-adjacent flows with ease. And even if she's not one to embrace auto-tune melody, I'm okay with that. But in a lot of those cases, it just boils down to the hustle in its bluntest possible form, and they feel like concessions to contemporary rap construction that, quite frankly, Rapsody's moved on years past. And they're not really as interesting as when she just has embraced pure spitting, or the groovy confidence that's always been a great secret weapon in her arsenal. Hell, I prefer more songs like the bouncy G-funk adjacent Michelle, or the burbling soul of Ibtihaj, rather than the trap-leaning cuts like Oprah, or the weirdly listless Tyra, because while Rapsody can make these songs work, frankly she achieves more success with Whoopi and Serena, especially with that hammering Luke sample, she doesn't quite sound like she's having as much fun, and that does get a bit distracting. Now, as I said earlier, I really understand why she's bringing this level of intensity and tone, especially early on with cuts like Cleo, where she flips the Phil Collins In the Air of the Night sample far better than Meek Mill did in order to shred into an industry and predominantly male audience who's often marginalized her because of her refusal to play the game with sexual provocation or just to dumb things down. And really, as a whole, Eve is her scathing refutation of that, an album primarily made for the empowerment and celebration of black femininity, catering to their narrative, their history, their struggles, their stories first. And yet it's hard to escape the feeling that it is a celebration within the system's confines rather than a revolution to reshape or break that system to better help them. And that kind of curtails the revolutionary spirit that the album keeps flirting with. It's part of a long-running minor issue I've had with Rapsody for a while, in that her immediate punchlines have weight and impact, but they struggle to coalesce into more. And while Layla's Wisdom transcended that by showing a multifaceted picture of Rapsody as a black woman, with the blunter aspirational focus this time around, the contradictions slide more into the picture, especially around money. It reminds me of the persistent criticism in the past couple of years of Jay-Z and Beyonce's brand of flexing and capitalism, feeling all the more relevant with the public relationship fiasco that's been Jay-Z's work with the NFL. And while Rapsody does have a little bit more sneering disinterest in that level of success, you can also tell that having been slighted so often, it does drive the desire to chase the money even harder. She'll be self-aware about how the label wants her to flex about her car on Sojourner, but then do it unironically on earlier songs. She'll highlight no matter how many millions will stack up, it won't save black lives from police brutality, but on other hooks and messages of other songs, we'll just circle back to chasing more of the money in that grind. And if this album was looking to draw attention to the exhausting contradictions at the core of the black woman's experience, that would be one thing, but I'm not sure that's what this is. It's ending the album with Afeni, a song celebrating and promoting tenderness towards black men and their struggle, anchored from the sampled hook from Tupac promoting respective women, even despite Tupac's rather questionable legacy. More prominently, it's a song like Aaliyah, promoting different standards and images of black beauty and femininity, but the backing sample's not of Aaliyah, but of Serena Claudio, an up-and-coming R&B act who was driven out of the scene when it was exposed that she ran a separate Twitter account that was explicitly denigrating black women. Then there's Iman with Sir and Jid on another song celebrating black beauty, with a punchline of Rapsody calling Jid out for calling her a bad bitch, which, you know, it could have been a good moment of cultivating respect, claiming labels for yourself but not for someone else. But that's not really what Rapsody's doing. It's demanding the lip service of respect while not really addressing his clunky, oversoul verse. We're getting the surface level criticism, and it's not quite going deeper. And here's the frustrating thing. These contradictions serve more as distractions from a project that on other stretches is absolutely stunning. I completely understand why Rapsody interspersed Raina's Biddy's poetry all throughout the album and gave her her own interlude, because the writing is legitimately great with some striking emotional intricacy. And when Rapsody can just flex her wordplay against great production, it can be striking. I already mentioned Cleo, and while I found the sample flip on Nina is a little bit obvious, Rapsody's verse still shreds everything in her path. And I don't love all of her trap flips, but the stormy rumble and the shouting sample on Serena hits incredibly well, and gets even darker across Merle, where she highlights the lingering pain of black women seeing their spouses killed against a Bjork flip in that really murky beat. Hell, even at the flutes and dusky knock of Maya, the more lush Billy Paul flip on Iman, and the beautiful funk touches around Afeni, they might be obvious touch points for Ninth Wonder. They really are tones that are a great fit for Rapsody, and she does great work with it. And Knotts follows suit on the glossy keys of Michelle, a playful moment where Rapsody handily co-opts the shoutouts on the outro, and while she's aware of how ridiculous it kind of all is, she's still having fun and claiming that black sexuality. And I'd be loath to ignore Ibtihaj, featuring D'Angelo on the hook and a really solid Jizza verse. It reflects an ease and a love for broader hip-hop culture, especially in the past, which Rapsody fits comfortably, and she can go toe-to-toe with the greats. But on the flip side, I'm left thinking about a song like Sojourner that has great verses from both J. Cole and Rapsody, but while both are dealing with feeling like an outsider in their own industry because of things they can't control and finding their own lane in order to reject that larger scene, I found myself wishing that Rapsody at least attempted to match J. Cole's introspection. Because we get a good verse, but it's a real tonal contradiction that strikes an odd note given her brand of flexing that's self-aware there. And it's honestly close to where I fall in the project. A lot of great rapping, striking production, but a slew of little contradictions that might resonate more with Rapsody's target audience, but for me lead to a rather fractured brand of aspiration that doesn't quite come together. Of course, I know it's not made for me, and Rapsody working to name and empower her icon's legacy, it's got cultural and historical weight. But at the same level, it feels a bit compromised, and done at the expense of the layered humanity that made me like Rapsody's material so much on Layla's Wisdom, even if it was not a project that I consistently revisited. And thus for Eve, you know, it's getting a very strong 7 out of 10, but absolutely recommended, and I feel for her target audience who respond more to this brand of aspirational hip-hop, it'll connect way more strongly. And as for Rapsody, really honestly, I'd be happy if she got the success and appreciation that she rightly deserves, because from there, I'd love to see where she'd go. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. This is a bit of a tough review to film, a bit of a tough review to write, to be honest. I've been sitting with this for a while, and it's just a tough album to really put my finger on why I didn't quite love it as much as I wanted to. But if you want to buy or stream it, links down there below, and I got the poll up there. I'm curious where you guys might fall on this one, especially Rapsody fans, because I've seen the comparisons to Layla's Wisdom and how it's not quite getting the same acclaim. I'm curious what you guys think. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you guys are looking for new episodes or new reviews or the newest episode of Billboard Breakdown, links are in the card right over there. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.